I'm Theresa Bryant, and I grew up in Jonesborough and lived here all of my childhood, but moved away for many years for my career and moved back when I retired in 2019. Oh, I just love it. It's home. I mean, even when I lived away, this was home. And my parents lived here, so I was back many times visiting them while they were alive. And it's interesting, when I was younger, I really loved cities, and I just couldn't imagine moving back to Jonesborough. But after you live in cities for a long time and you do a lot of things you want to do, you appreciate the smallness, but also the history. My family's been here for 250 years, so there's a real sense of belonging here. But what I realized, and I've traveled a lot, the small towns, the UNESCO towns in Europe, are what really attract me because they have history. I mean, cities are nice and they have museums and cathedrals and all of that, but what you see about the culture and the people in the small towns is just amazing. And that's how Jonesborough is. Because I work here at the museum, I volunteer here, we have people come in from all over the country, in fact some from out of the country, and that's what attracts them here. They're so impressed with the historic preservation that we've been able to do. It tells the story of the town. That's important. I have lots of memories here, having grown up here. I spent my childhood in the library downstairs when it was downstairs, and when it was apartments up here, I took art lessons from a lady that lived up here. So I have personal history with the museum as well as understanding the town's history with the museum. I'm a volunteer docent, so I man the desk downstairs. We bring people up here to this room, the dining room, and there's a sleeping room upstairs if they want to see that, and tell them about the things that are here. The restoration here is to the Victorian period because there was really nothing left of the original inn. It had been divided up into apartments and just changed so much. There were like no paint samples, no wallpaper samples or anything like that. So the restoration is Victorian, which is mid-19th century. Oh, I got married and my husband was in the Air Force and we moved away, and then we actually lived in Germany for 3 years. So that's what really, well, it changes your life view to be 20 years old and move to another country when you've grown up in Jonesborough, Tennessee. But it also gave me a love for travel, a love for history. My undergraduate degree is a double major in history and English, so I was always fascinated, especially by European history. And it's only as I've become to appreciate, I guess, my history and the town's history here that I've become much more interested in the U.S. history than I was as a student. I started to say I think it's a lot more progressive, and in some ways it is. But the fact that we became a historic district in the 60s was hugely progressive for that time, because so many little towns didn't, and they just either disappeared or they lost all their historic roots and became something different.
What's something else that has surprised you about Jonesborough?
Traffic. The traffic is so much. I live on a one-block dead-end street that dead ends out on East Main Street. And growing up, when you pulled out there, seldom did you even have to stop. There were no cars. Well, now you always stop, and sometimes there are 15 cars that you wait for to go by. Just the traffic in general is much, but that's true a lot of places. It's not just Jonesborough, but that's one of the most evident changes to me. I think it's going to be increasingly challenging to manage the growth. While that's positive in many ways, I mean, it's the taxes and everything bring more revenue into the town in order to try to manage that. We're giving up history in some cases. I mean, some of the historic mills or buildings that have been demolished in order to make room for subdivisions or houses or something. I think that's sad. I think we're trying to preserve that as much as we can through archival things, but still you've lost the actual piece of history. They settled in Washington College. My father's family grew up, and still the members of our family that still live here. I have two first cousins that still live here. My father's sister's children, and they both live in Washington College, or close to Washington College. My mother grew up in Telford, so my grandfather, her father, was a doctor who moved to Jonesborough, and I remember as a child, he was a typical country doctor. I mean, got paid in eggs sometimes, and did house calls, and things that just don't happen anymore. In many ways, it was a hard life. I mean, unlike we think doctors today are very affluent and well paid and all of that, and they struggled. I mean, they were integral part of the community, and they would help people who needed help no matter what, even if they couldn't be paid. And healthcare is so structured today that you lose that flexibility, I think. I'm a member of St. John's Episcopal Church in Johnson City. I'm very active in that. I'm on their vestry, which is their governing body of an Episcopal church. I'm president of the Jonesborough Genealogical Society now, so that is beginning to take up serious time. And I belong to other organizations in Jonesborough that I appreciate working with. And I travel. That was my dream in retirement, and so I try to take at least 2 or 3 European trips a year, and some domestic, not so much domestic, more of those to visit friends or family or something, but yeah.
Has there been a time since moving back here that you thought about moving again?
No. I mean, if I became so incapacitated I had to be in a nursing home or something, I would probably want that to be close to my son. But as long as I'm able to be out and about, I'll be in Jonesborough. It's very historic, but we're also known to be very warm and friendly, very welcoming to people who visit here and welcoming to people who move here. Because so many of my friends have relocated, and they all have wonderful stories about how they were welcomed to the community by people who had lived here for their lives. I mean, my mother was like that. I mean, she grew up in Telford, lived in Jonesborough all of her life, but anybody that was a newcomer in Jonesborough, she'd invite them over for coffee. She'd make sure that they knew how to get whatever they needed, doctors or dentists, or the stuff you have to find when you move. So, and I think that's important, because there are other places you go that people may not be unfriendly, but they don't go out of their way to be so welcoming, and I think people in Jonesborough do.
Do you consider yourself a Jonesboroughian?
Yes, totally.
What does that mean to you?
That this is my home, and this is, and I care about it, and I want to be part of it, and I want to have as positive an influence on it as I can or know how.